sent an email to Destination America asking them what I thought was a very simple question. After Impact is done airing on Destination America, will it air on Hulu? Dixie Carter has been talking about alternate platforms where this show will be cross-promoted. So I thought, well, one of these alternate platforms has got to be providing this show. Right, Vinny?
You would think.
Maybe it'll be on Hulu. Maybe it'll even be on demand. Because for some reason, even though I don't subscribe to Destination America, some of Destination America's shows are available to me on demand. So I figured I would email the friendly folks at Destination America and ask them this question. Do you know what they responded to me, Vinny?
I don't.
Allow me to read this response. Dear viewer, that would be me. Thank you for contacting Destination America. We appreciate your interest in our programming. Our databases contain a lot of information, such as air dates and information on videos that are available for sale. But unfortunately, it does not carry the information you are requesting. We don't have a research staff to help gather facts for specific projects, and we suggest you use your local library or the internet. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. Thank you again for expressing your interest in our programming. They told me, Vinny, that if I wanted to know if this show was going to air on Hulu, I needed to go to the library. The local library.
Please tell me you did this.
I have not yet gone to the library.
Go to the library and say, excuse me, do you know if Impact Wrestling will be available on Hulu?
What I'm thinking of doing is printing out this email and taking it to the Bothell Public Library, perhaps with a hidden camera, and finding out if they have any additional information on this problem.
The library.
That's right.
It gets funnier the more I think about this.
That's right.
You've had hours to let it digest. It's new to me.
No, I just, moments before we went on the air, I received this information.
I see.
So yes, everybody, I don't know if it's going to air on Hulu, and apparently either does Destination America. They have sent me to the library. This is this TNA on Destination America is an amazing story in so many ways.
The library.
All I wanted was something different, and I got the same old show.
Yeah, you did.
Everything was exactly the same. Nothing changed. Well, let's go through it.
So I opened my notes and realized it had been a good 6 weeks since I had watched Impact. And now it was back. What a wonderful 6 weeks those were.
Back with a vengeance.
Didn't you earlier say it was not?
Back without a vengeance.
So, the show opened with bullshit. There was like 20 dudes fighting everywhere. And it's Impact, so the camera cut every 2 seconds. So you see someone like throw a punch, and then before it even connect, they'd cut away. And there'd be like a guy choking him, and before you could see who was being choked, it would cut away. And there'd be a girl there. And then you cut to the guys brawling the top, and there'd be no fans there. And then he would cut away. On, and on, and on, and on. Now, you got this off of YouTube, correct?
I watched this show on YouTube, and whoever uploaded it, I don't even know what happened, but I airplayed it to the television, and it cut off randomly the right, maybe 1/3 of the screen.
And the bottom.
And a little bit of the bottom. I don't even know what happened or why this occurred.
We were getting maybe half the picture.
That's right.
So, this does not help matters.
And you know what's funniest about it is TNA has been, historically, so incompetent that it took us a good half hour to figure out that it was a screw-up on the part of this YouTube video.
Yes.
At first, I thought that they were just showing a shot of the announcers and just cutting Josh out of the frame.
Yes.
We were like, why can't I see? I can hear him.
Yeah.
I know he's there. I can see his shoulder. Why can't I see Josh?
This seems like something that historically would be something Impact Wrestling would do.
That's right. But this, for once, was not their fault.
No, it did not help matters. And I know it's not just us, and it's not just this crappy YouTube version of the show we watched, because I'm almost positive that at one point the announcer said, "I think I saw Jeff Hardy."
That is what they said.
So this went on for minutes and minutes of just a mess. Just a mess. And finally, Kurt Angle comes out for a promo. He orders security to break up the fights. Security have been trying to break up the fights for all 10 minutes, though, whatever this was. The fights are still going on as Kurt's talking. He says all the champions will defend their titles tonight. And he's about to talk more when MVP grabs the mic. And MVP talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And this crowd, the Destination America, is apparently more of a family network than Spike. Because this crowd got bleeped left and right all night long. And when the crowd got bleeped, that means whichever wrestler was talking at the same time also got bleeped.
Wasn't even all swearing. They bleeped MV penis.
No, that got through.
Oh, it did?
MV penis got through. MV pussy got bleeped.
I see.
Yes.
I see. Well, that's sexist.
So, MVP's talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And finally, Kurt says he has stepped down as director of operations or whatever the hell his job was. He is now an active wrestler again, and his first match is a street fight with MVP right now.
Think about that, by the way, everybody. Kurt Angle's first match back, they didn't even say he will be returning on January 16th on our Friday debut for his first match in 6 months.
Dude,
nope.
they didn't even say he'll be back in the main event of this show, Call Your Friends.
That's right. He was back in the opening match of the show.
I'm back right now.
That's right.
So, in this street fight between two hated rivals, Kurt Angle hated MVP so much that he was trying to pin him with roll-ups.
Well, you just want to win, you know?
I guess. My favorite part of this, actually, was Angle's beating him up, and the crowd loved Angle. And then MVP cut him off with a rolling knee bar. And everyone booed, but it's not like they were booing MVP. It's like they were booing all leg holds. They did not want to see grappling. They wanted to see strikes.
Don't go after a guy's leg. Come on.
So they went back and forth for a while, and then Angle hit an angle slam out of nowhere and won.
That's right, a clean pin. I was very pleased to see
One man
that.
defeated another with no distraction or interference or other BS. A wrestler out-wrestled his opponent and won.
That's right.
And to their credit, they let this sink in. Kurt was celebrating in the aisle for, by Impact standards, a very long time. There was no to the back. There was no 800 things going on. Just the winner basking in the glory of victory.
Excellent.
After commercial, MVP was chewing Kenny King out backstage for not helping him. He said, "Where were you?" King said, "I was busy with the girls." Valid excuse.
You know, I got to say a couple of things before we go any further. First off, the crowd was sparse.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Nobody there. The place is dark. It looked empty.
Well, they had... It's not even fair to say they had no lights in the crowd. There may have been a black hole around the ringside area.
Could have been,
You
yeah.
could see nothing. There might have been 5 people there. There might have been 5,000 people there. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you there were not 5,000 people there. You were closer when you said 5.
Yeah.
Now, I will give TNA some credit. The lighting was absolutely horrible. However, they do know how to mic a crowd, because it did sound like there were significantly more people there than there were actually in the building. So I got to give them credit. They did a good job with the miking, at least for the stuff that people cared about. For the stuff people didn't care about, it sounded like they were in a morgue.
Yeah. So MVP, after chewing out Kenny King, went to chew out Lashley. Announcers talked for a while. Then Ethan and Tyrus are cutting a promo backstage. Crazy fucking Steve was there for no reason, and they pushed him away and he left. And it never came up again. So Ethan said most of us had already broken our New Year's commitments. He called us all fatties. He vowed to finish Spud off tonight. Back to the announcers. Josh explained he was taking over for Mike Tenay. He was very honored by this. And then they went to a Tenay interview segment. I thought Josh, by the way, was a big upgrade over Mike Tenay.
He did fine.
He did not sound like he was reading from a script. And Mike Tenay, just because he is Mike Tenay, everything he says sounds like he's reading from a script. So TNA did this interview here with James Storm, and they talked about how the Revolution came about, and Storm tried to be all scary and compared himself to the devil and stuff like that. It was better than a Bray Wyatt promo. This is a Bray Wyatt knockoff. I guess that's all that matters.
I liked the Mike Tenay uncomfortable face, which we should all get used to because you're going to be seeing a lot of it.
James Storm and Abyss, who are, if you have forgotten, the tag team champions, they were defending against the Wolves. The Hardys came out to watch. So the Wolves, I guess it's body paint, but they got like scars on their shoulders.
I think they're supposed to be like gigantic scratch marks, like they were attacked by wolverines.
Highly disturbing. So they did about 500 moves. At one point, the Hardys jumped in the ring and started randomly brawling with Mannequin Sonata. In the middle of all this mess, Jeff bonked into Edwards, and Storm hit a super kick for the pin.
You know what I hated about this? They were having this fine little match, and then, of course, we had to have interference. And it's one thing, I can sort of imagine a referee being distracted and not knowing that somebody has snuck into the ring. However, somebody snuck into the ring with a loud fucking cowbell.
Yes.
How do you miss that? Well, the referee did. He completely missed it. A cowbell here in the ring.
Yeah.
Ref needs to get his hearing checked.
Had a rude Lashley highlight package. MVP was yelling at Lashley backstage, taking credit for everything he had done in wrestling and MMA. And Lashley pinned him against the wall and said, "This is about me, not you." And MVP was appalled. Lashley put his hands on him, told him good luck tonight, and he left.
Strong tease of dissension, and you know where that's going.
Seems imminent.
Swerve.
Yeah, probably.
They did. They swerved to the end of the show tonight.
I see. Jeremy Borash was in the ring for some reason. EC3 interrupted. He tried to cut his promo, but he and the fans were getting bleeped pretty much the entire time. Finally, he got them to chant, "You can't wrestle." And once they started doing that, that meant he had freedom to speak and we could hear him. So, to make a very long story very short, Tyrus brought Spud down to the ring. Ethan was going to cut Spud's hair. Jeremy Borash tried to make the save. Jeremy Borash attacked Ethan.
Well, you see, Jeremy Borash and Spud are good buddies as a result of the British boot camp.
More to the point, it's Jeremy fucking Borash. I realize Spud is tiny. I realize he should not necessarily be fighting off both these men by himself. But when you are getting saved by Jeremy Borash, you're a geek.
What disrespect for Jeremy Borash's fighting acumen.
Yes.
I got to give Jeremy Borash credit, and I'll tell you why. A lot of times when you're setting up the hair match and somebody gets a little bit of hair clipped, it's like you find a guy with long hair, you pull one strand and you cut it off.
You basically give him a haircut.
A very, very minor haircut, or you cut off one strand so you didn't even really give him a haircut at all. Not Jeremy Borash. He had EC3 take that razor and buzz him right down the middle of the head. The absolute worst place.
That is true.
To possibly get a haircut.
That is true.
And that's what they did to apparently set up EC3 and Spud in a hair versus hair match down the road.
Ethan is growing his hair out.
That's right.
That is true. So,
that's right.
Ethan's performance was pretty good here, but this went forever.
I don't like Ethan stealing Tyson Kidd's fact gimmick.
He did steal the fact gimmick, too.
Which I think is my gimmick, quite frankly. Tyson Kidd stole it from me, but...
Fact. King and MVP were ranting about Lashley backstage. Then they left. There were more Lashley rude highlights. Low Key defended the X Division title against Austin Aries. They showed tons and tons of X Division clips from our history. I believe I saw Slim J at one point.
Well, you gotta respect the history of your brand.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. Just in case a new Destination America viewer was checking this out for the first time.
They need to know about, what was his name?
Slim J.
Slim J.
They need to know that this title has been fought by daredevils for the past decade.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with this.
Yes.
They plugged Taz's podcast, including an appearance by WWE Hall of Famer Edge.
And I believe it was his first guest.
So it was, Low-key and Austin Aries. They had a good match. Went back and forth the whole time. The Aries had a big tope. The crowd the network desperately tried to bleep the holy shit chant, but their timing was way off. There's this awesome spot where Aries goes for his brainbuster, but he lifts Key up, and Key slips behind him, goes around the back like a koala bear, and hooks his head like a dragon sleeper. That ruled. And it kept going back and forth, and finally Aries hit a brainbuster of complete and utter death to win the match and the title. It was actually short, but it was super intense.
That was a hell of a brainbuster, dude.
He killed the guy.
Oh, yeah.
The Bromance and the Beautiful People came out, and they gave a hero's welcome to the returning Robbie E.
See, this was wacky because what it was a battle royal for the Knockouts title that Taryn was defending. Yes, why was she defending it in a battle royal? I don't know. Who cares? But she's out there. She's defending the title in battle royal, and half of the girls are in the ring, including Havoc. And the Beautiful People come out, and they give the hero's welcome to Robbie E. And Robbie E comes out, and the people are chanting his name, and he's doing a promo, and he's talking about the Amazing Race, and he's talking about his ex-girlfriend, Brooke, which, by the way, they really were dating, and they really did break up, which makes this whole thing even more fascinating. But they're doing all of this while half of the girls are randomly waiting in the ring, including, as noted, Havoc, for a battle royal to start. This was so goofy.
I just because TNA will always be TNA, and they will never not be TNA. Their guy got major exposure, and their girl, by going on a show with a much larger audience than their own. As a couple.
That's right.
And their response to this was to never mention them as a couple on their show before the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as they came back, just in case even one person saw them on The Amazing Race and thought, I guess I'll check out their wrestling show, they were already broken up by the time they got back.
That is absolutely correct.
Robbie E. and Brooke never one time appeared as a couple on Impact.
That is correct.
They could not have done less to use this exposure from The Amazing Race to build their brand or their stars.
Yep.
This is TNA. So yes, somehow this celebration with all these guys turned into a battle royal for the Knockouts title. Battle royals always suck. Battle royals where you can't see half the screen suck more.
And battle royals in an absolutely empty building that nobody cares about, that sucks the most of all.
And battle royals I couldn't see very much what was going on here, but I could see how badly Taryn Terrell sucks. Just throwing these hideous knees. So Brooke, who was not in the battle royal, came flying in out of nowhere and attacked Robbie. So I guess Brooke and Robbie are now going to feud.
I was really pissed off about the split screen here because she's out there in these jeans, and I couldn't even see half of it because we missed the bottom half and the right hand of the screen.
Yeah,
Did I say right hand? Right side of the screen.
Regardless, major fail. So Taryn Terrell won the battle royal. I literally have no idea how. I don't know what happened. It seemed like there were about 4 girls in the ring, and I turned my head, and the next thing you know, the bell rang and Taryn won. So then Havoc got in the ring to beat up Taryn. Beat her up. The lights go out. A few seconds pass, and when the lights come back on, Awesome Kong is in the ring, having a stare down with Havoc. The place is going nuts. Having this super intense stare down. They're both daring each other to make the first move, and as soon as the referees step in to break it up, Havoc immediately sees an out and she bails and leaves. And Kong just watched her walk away and then chokes them to ref to death. This was, by leaps and bounds, the best thing on the show.
I was told that live in the building, Kong got, by far, the biggest reaction of anybody on the show.
Mm-hmm.
She has gained all of the weight back. She lost some weight. Mm-hmm. I think the last time she was on the show, she was lamenting that she had gained some of the weight back.
Yeah.
But she's still Kong.
She is still Kong.
And this was
She has a presence.
Yes.
That few men have, frankly.
She's a very charismatic woman in real life.
Yeah. And, this part was awesome. That was great. I don't know how good Awesome Kong versus Havoc is actually going to be, but God bless them, they did their best here. The main event was Lashley versus Rude. They had a fun match. And then in the middle, they had a split screen to show backstage MVP and King had returned with some masked men, and they beat up security. And then they came down to ringside. Match continues. Everything's going along fine, and then it just becomes another...
Every TNA main event match you ever saw.
Which is every WWE light match you ever saw. It just feels like a ripoff of World Wrestling Entertainment.
I know. Can you imagine? I still am just absolutely... This show was live. It wasn't even like this was taped months ago. This was a live show. And you know that WWE has absolutely sucked. And you know why they've sucked. You know what everybody dislikes about them, the finishes, the matches, and everything. Meanwhile, there's a New Japan Tokyo Dome that everybody and their mother on this website, literally mothers, were watching this with their children. They all watched that New Japan show. And you would think that based on the feedback in the Observer, I believe it was 388 thumbs up, 0 thumbs down, and 0 thumbs in the middle. That if you were TNA, you would look to this promotion, not copy New Japan, but what is it about New Japan that people like? What is it about WWE that people don't like? And when you design your product, maybe take some of those things that people like about New Japan, such as clean fucking finishes, and put that into your program. Instead of having the exact same main event we see on Raw. Same thing. Eric Young runs in for a swerve. You've got a new heel unit. Rude gets pinned after outside interference. New champion, blah, blah, blah. Who could possibly care by the end of this? Yeah. Sicken me.
You are correct on all of that. I want to talk about this swerve. Because this was a classic. This is every TNA swerve ever. In that... there was no hint it was coming. It made no sense. There was no reason for it. And yet it was so painfully obvious. Eric Young is going to hit Rude with a chair because it makes no sense. This is not a good swerve. This is not good storytelling. This is trying to fool and surprise people, but you are so stupid you don't realize it's not a surprise. It's very obvious what you're doing. So it's not surprising to anyone, it's not fooling anyone, it's not entertaining to anyone, and oh, by the way, hasn't heel Eric Young always been such a massive success? Oh, those great heel Eric Young segments. Can't wait. So yeah, show sucks.
Right back to normal, everybody.
It is much better than Raw.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's not praise.
No.
That is not praise.
This was an awful show.
I don't know, but that was SmackDown, everybody, and Dave has not seen Impact yet, but we do have a bunch of Impact spoilers from the big taping in London, so if you don't want to know what's going on in TNA, you might want to click off right now. But the big news is there is a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. They did Kurt Angle versus Bobby Lashley, and apparently it was a very, very good match. And they traded a whole bunch of finishers and that sort of thing. And then finally, Kurt got him in the ankle lock, and Lashley tapped out.
Wow.
That's right. So Kurt Angle, new TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So what happens with Lashley?
I don't know. Which begs the question, if you're going to do this match, why did they turn Lashley babyface?
I don't get it.
I do not know. There is a new X Division champion. Spud won the title. And on this set of tapings, they did in fact do the hair versus hair match with EC3. And EC3 got the win with his 1%er and shaved Spud's head. So his hair is gone. We had the debut of Drew Galloway, the former Drew McIntyre. I don't know what this means for his Evolve Championship, but he's now signed with TNA apparently. And that means that him and his former wife, Taryn Terrell, are awkwardly in the same promotion together.
It's happened before. But yeah, you're right. It's awkward. I was so surprised that he would go back. I mean, not go back, go there.
Yeah.
Because he's always talked about his goal going to the WWE, and I figured he was going to work Indies, try to work Japan. Because you can go there and WWE will take you, but if you go to TNA, I'm not saying that they 100% won't take him, but it absolutely lowers your odds. And that's why I was really surprised that he would go there.
The Wolves end up as the TNA Tag Team Champions. They do an Ultimate X match with DJZ, Jesse Goddard's, Manic, and Sonata for the tag titles, and they retain them in that match. We have a last man standing match with Bobby Roode beating Eric Young, giving him the Roode bomb off the apron through a table, and then making it to his feet. We have a Magnus versus Bram match. By the way, Mickie James is back as well.
That may only be temporary, though. She was. Did they turn Magnus babyface completely?
Magnus, Bram attacks Magnus. Mickie is there as a distraction. Bram ties Magnus to the ropes. Mickie is a human shield.
Yes. So she was brought back to help Magnus do his babyface turn.
I see.
And that's all she was brought back for. I mean, it's not to say that she may not be offered a deal if she did well and she was over, but she was offered a deal just for the UK. It was just the UK tour, and it was not for Mickie James to return as much as for Mickie James to help Magnus get over as a babyface, because they wanted to turn Magnus face in England.
And they also did a whole bunch of angles with Grado, I forget Grado, who actually is very, very popular over there. They've had him on British Boot Camp. If you saw any of the new British Boot Camp, they were building up a storyline with him and Al Snow, and those guys end up doing a match, and then they're kind of tying him into some other storylines as well. Drew about 5,000 to the building. So there were a lot of empty seats, but still 5,000 people showed up. So those are the main notes from the TNA tapings in London.
Watched Impact this morning from yesterday. I'm watching the Saturday morning Impact because it's the same show except you get all the Mike Tenay. Basically, it's Mike Tenay texts throughout the show, and
pop-up video with Mike Tenay.
The pop-up, it's pop-up text. They have like this little sound, and then that means, and it's in like a warning on the screen, like sort of says like a text is coming, and then he'll do a text. And I get a kick out of it because a lot of it is really funny, but it's total inside stuff that like a lot of people won't get. So I get a kick out of it. Like he listens to the commentary, and then he kind of chimes in. And it's like, I'll just give you an example. It's like Taz will say something like how the Hardys learned to fight in because it's rough in Cameron.
And then he Cameron,
North Carolina, and so he texts back like Cameron has a population of 285 people, Or one was when MVP made some remark about like all the idiots that were in the New York public schools, and Mike on the text says Taz is a product of the New York public school system.
So it's just public school 141 or something, if that's the promo I remember.
Yeah, so it's just like that for like most of the stuff isn't exactly like that. It's just like little factoids, like like they had a tag team match and a tornado match. The tag team title match was a tornado match, and just goes, tornado matches were originated in 1937, and it's just like all of that. And the only thing that was bad, and this was actually on both New Japan on Friday night and then the TNA on Saturday morning show. So on both shows, on the New Japan show on Friday night, there were the main event was the Okada Makabe match from last year from the Dominion pay-per-view, which was, I remembered that being a great match. Now when I watch it again, I don't know if standards have changed, but it was like 3 times as good as I remembered it. Maybe it's because of everything else I'm watching. I don't know, but I mean, it was like freaking phenomenal, like a match of the year. And part of it's probably Mauro Ranallo and Josh Barnett are so good at this. So that was like just great. But during the commercial break, they're showing plugs for next week's show. And this was Okada and Makabe was a IWGP title match. And in the commercial breaks, it's, don't forget to tune in next week as Okada defends the title against Prince Devitt. And it's kind of like, God, you're not supposed to put these promos on until at least after the match is over. So
yes.
On the TNA show, they did a break-in, and one of the things that they do on the Saturday show is they do the new top 5 contenders for the world title, which they then repeat on Friday. But it starts on the regular show on Friday, but it actually comes out on Saturday. So they have Mike Tenay going through, and he's explaining, the new top 5 contenders. And in doing so, instead of putting it on at the end of the show, the last match was the Lethal Lockdown match, which was Team Angle against the Beatdown Crew. And as he's going through, I think Bobby Roode was number 1 contender, and then Kurt's number 2 contender, Kurt Angle. And so he goes, Kurt Angle, number 2 contender after the big win, in the Lethal Lockdown. And then when he was talking about like MVP, it's like MVP coming off the loss at Lethal Lockdown. And they're doing this thing was like actually done at about, coming back from a break during the Lethal Lockdown match. So in a sense, gave away the finish. It didn't in a sense. It absolutely gave away the finish. So,
which is not, in the history of TNA Impact, they've done that multiple times.
Yeah, I just think that should not happen when I'm watching a wrestling show, having them tell me who won the match that I'm watching before the match ends, but it happened twice.
Now, was there a big shakeup in the top 5? Because I ended up catching the Thursday edition of the show, and it wasn't a bad show.
You mean the Friday edition?
Oh, I'm sorry, the Friday edition of the show, and it wasn't a bad show, but it was a quiet show like they all are, and that really, it's a very stark thing, especially when Bobby Roode is screaming at Eric Young, and it's again, you can tell there's not a lot of people there, and that's too bad.
Well, the thing is this was the Friday night taping, so they actually had a packed house in that building that night of the taping. But they must have mic'd the crowd terribly because it felt dead, and
it seemed very, very quiet for being a packed house. That's a real surprise.
Yeah. I mean, either the crowd made no noise, and I heard the opposite, so I don't think that's the case. They must have mic'd the crowd terribly because it felt like it was a dead crowd. It felt like there was nobody there. The way they shot it, it was so dark, and it felt like a real minor league. You're watching a real minor league show. That's what it felt like. I mean, the show itself, there was nothing that I would say all that bad about the show. I enjoyed the show as far as content wise. I thought the promos were by and large good. The matches felt really dead, because of the lack of crowd reaction. But it wasn't like they were lazy matches. In the Hardys match, I'm beginning to think that Matt Hardy needs to change his style because he's wrestling the young guy style and he's moving slow. So I think he needs to change to a more deliberate style because it really was it felt like a veteran trying to work the wrong style for him. I mean, it's the same style he's been doing for 15, 20 years. So it's kind of like it is his style, but because he's slowed down, it didn't look good. Or maybe it's just the fact that there was no crowd, and because of that, it felt like it wasn't looking good. I don't know. All I know is I was watching it going like, this isn't looking good to me.
I was watching the end thinking his brother should change his style. For those who are unaware, this is the show where Jeff took the bump off the cage door and fell onto the steps, and I mean just fell onto the steps and bounced off of the steps, and that was ugly.
It was,
They showed it from 75 different views, and MVP hyped it up repeatedly on the rest of the show that we may have seen the last of Jeff Hardy, and it was a nasty looking,
it was the big injury bump because he's going to be off TV for the next 6 weeks because they're all filming in England and he can't go. But it was he crotched himself on the cage door and then fell off the cage door right onto the steps. So it was it wasn't like it was a 15-foot drop, but it was a big drop, right on, and those steps are pretty unforgiving. It was he landed about as flat as you could land, but it still wasn't something that I would recommend doing, that's for sure. But
the recurring
he got up.
This show to me seemed to be changed the way you have the cage set up because
the announcers even brought that up.
I mean, and they had to because in the first one it was the whole in that tornado tag match you had Mannix interfering right off the bat. You had Sonata
Mannix is in the cage less than 2 minutes into the match. I mean, And Taz immediately goes, that's what the cage is supposed to keep people out. I mean, they basically ruined the cage in the first 2 minutes of an all-cage match show. I mean,
and
if they had saved interference...
Basically so they could do a stereo spot together, and then he was locked up against the cage for the rest of the time.
Then they handcuffed him to the cage, which to set up a spot where Abyss broke the handcuff at the end. But it was the idea when he came into the cage immediately 2 minutes into the first match on an all-cage match show was like unbelievably stupid. I mean, it was just like, because essentially they ruined the cage. The announcers have they actually said that. Then there was the spot where, in that same match, where Matt gets pulled through that camera hole thing. So it's like, that's another thing that the cage is supposed to prevent is outside interference and a guy being pulled out. So Jeff is in the cage by himself,
yeah, Matt's
for
pulled
the
out
finish.
By Koya. Like it's a cartoon, joke style, like right through the fence. That's how big the hole is.
Yeah, and it's like, and that camera hole is stupid because again, the whole idea is like, what's the purpose of the cage match? I mean, the only thing they did was Eric Young bled in the Eric Young Bobby Roode cage match, and then in the main event, they were still getting in and out. It was just, yeah, I don't know. They did the Velvet Sky Angelina Love thing where she's gone and Angelina Love's pretending to be sympathetic but smiling at the same time.
Yep, came to the realization she'll be all by herself, which means nobody weighing her down anymore. So she was cattily happy once she left the area and left the locker room.
Yeah, and then they had and then the other so then they injure Gunner. And then he starts this is like early in the show, they injure Gunner. He may have torn his bicep or injured his bicep or something.
He
when
pulled
they
his
slammed
arm through the cage door and slammed it shut, the entire Beatdown Club.
Yeah, the Beatdown Clan. So they put in the arm in the cage and slammed a chair on the cage door to slam it shut. And so he's doing that. So then he's the guy who starts the match and has to go to 20 minutes. Instead of coming in late.
Well, he did tell the doctor that he was going to fight it. Now, of course, none of his teammates thought, "Hey, why don't you come in last?" But he did say he at least announced that he was going to be tough and fight through it. He
did say he wanted to come in first, but to me, it's like if I'm like the captain, I'm going like, well, that's well and noble of you, but you come in last. But it did not happen that way. So it was like a lot of stuff that, like, again, if you're gonna do that and you're gonna injure the guy. He should come in last. If you're going to have him come in first, maybe you should injure him in the first minute of the match instead of a half hour before the match. But they want to do that skit where he was the thing is like they injured him because it was originally a 4-on-3 because they were going through the whole show saying that Bobby Lashley wasn't going to team with Kurt Angle, Gunner, and Austin Aries.
Kurt Angle even put hands on him in one backstage skit. He was so upset, begging him, almost trying and pushed him up against the wall, and then kind of realized what he was doing and backed away, and Lashley still shook him off. So you didn't really technically know if Lashley was going to be there before the main event.
Right, so they go in there, and then when they injure Gunner, the doctor goes, you can't wrestle. And then Austin Aries goes, well, we could go 4-on-3, but we can't go 4-on-2. You have to wrestle. And Gunner's just like, I'm wrestling and I'm going in first. And it's like, whatever, And
Aries is kind of a dick for letting him do it.
Yeah. And then, that was that. And that was, so they did that. But yeah, like even the Lethal Lockdown match, it was really hurt by the lack of heat. I mean, when I was watching, like the action in that match wasn't bad, but it just, when you got pro wrestling and, it feels like there's no fans there, even when there are. It looks dark. And there's no crowd reaction. It's not gonna.
Yeah, that's
it's not gonna resonate.
If they plan on keeping it that dark, and they may have to, depending on the crowds, they need to do something with. They have to lighten up the cage and lighten up the ropes or something like that, so the whole thing doesn't come across as being, again, so dark. If they could do something aesthetically that way, that would help out a little bit. It still wouldn't be great, but at least it would help out.
Yeah, well, I mean, the next 6 shows are in the UK, so hopefully it's better. And then after
that's going to be awesome. From that how his.
Well, it depends if it's lit. If it's lit like that, it won't be. And then if they're going to go, then after that they're going to go to Orlando, and that's the studio. So that should look like it used to look. So that problem, in theory, will be gone away with. But TNA still does feel like something, kind of on Destination to Nowhere when you watch it. So. that is a negative.
Yeah, they did announce the Orlando tapings or make it public February 12th to the 16th.
Yeah, that's pay-per-view tapings for the rest. That's all their pay-per-views for the rest of the year.
Well, that's they haven't decided to put those up online or anything like that. They're still relying 100% on traditional pay-per-view for those.
As far as I know,
that's something they.
But,
need
I mean, I don't hear anyone ever talk about buying, old TNA, TNA pay-per-views taped months earlier. I don't think there's much of a market for that. I mean, they really didn't have much of a market for new pay-per-views. That's why they're not doing them anymore.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I would just, if I'm them, go bananas though. I mean, what are they drawing? 200,000. What's the number for Destination?
This last week was the biggest number. See, they're on constantly. So if you add up every single show, it's probably 750,000 viewers, maybe even more. But it's like 100,000 here, 100,000 there. The biggest one, which is the first run Friday, was 300 and in the 300s. I can get you the exact number.
Because I would just prey on those people and do whatever I could. I mean, say, hey, the pay-per-view is up on our website. If you're willing to follow us through all of this, you might spend $24.99 and we'll get all of the money for that. I mean, I would go so hard after those people, and it doesn't seem like obviously the Shop TNA budget and things like that are down, but I mean, as far as pimping themselves so hard to those people still watching, it's the only thing they're going to be able to do.
Yeah. So last Friday was 338,000 viewers for the first run show. They did 103,000 for the Saturday morning show, which is actually, to me, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. That's pretty good. It's actually more impressive to me than 330. 100,000 for a repeat of a show that actually repeats, and it's actually the third repeat. Is to me kind of more impressive than 338 for the first show in prime time when you're talking about Saturday morning.
Anymore. Maybe kids are finding it or something.
Yeah.
I doubt it. It's still an impressive number, though.
Yeah.
In other wrestling news, TNA's pay-per-view tapings have been taking place, and literally a bad break for Eddie Edwards, who broke his heel on Sunday, doing a backflip off the apron to the floor in his match against Davey Richards, his tag team partner. And the January 30th taping in Manchester, England, that's going to air on March 6th, will show the Wolves of Richards and Edwards winning the tag team titles. How's Eddie Edwards right now, and how does this play as far as the tapings in Orlando coming up?
In what sense?
As far as, is this broken heel? Is it one of those things that, can he?
He's probably going to need surgery. He's probably going to be out for a while, and they are the tag team champions, which means that they haven't. The match where they win the title doesn't air till March 6th. I don't know how long he'll be out, and as of today, nobody knew how long he would be out. But surgery on your foot is not a quick recovery, especially with his style. So, I expect them to do something, whether it's a tournament or I don't know what, on the next set of tapings that are done in Orlando for the Vacant Championship.
Any news coming out of these tapings as far as crowd or anything special really coming out of tonight? Or these tapings?
The TNA tapings?
Yeah.
No, not at all. It's their return to Orlando. I haven't heard anything much about it other than every show has been, it looks like almost every show is a theme show, where it's, a bunch of matches and the winners advance to some big match at the end. And that's kind of how it's, the whole, they've done it with, what's the group? The Shoot group. I'm trying to think what else. What were we talking about?
The Shoot group with TNA?
Oh no! Sorry. No, they did a series of tournaments, and like Japanese is what I meant, but like
okay.
It would be actually it was more themed in the sense that they would have matches, and then all the winners would advance, and they could either be in a battle royal or an Ultimate X or a one night tournament. I mean, everything was like or a Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? It was something like that. Everything was like that. You know, just like theme shows, like a World Cup.
And they're going out really far with these, right?
Till next year. I mean, nothing with angles that have anything to do with anything, because no one even, you know, by the time they get to where they are, who knows if these people will even be in the company anymore? Who knows where the company's booking will be? So it's just like these ideas, these evergreen shows. So they're just all essentially tournaments. You know, there's a women's tournament. There's or Knockdown, I think was the name of the show. X Division Extravaganza, where they do the Ultimate X last. So yeah. Did
you get a chance to check out Impact from last Friday?
Yeah, I actually watched the Saturday morning version of it, and the Saturday morning version is it's the thing with the Saturday morning version is it's just crazy because it's got so many technical flaws. The last time I watched it 2 weeks ago, it had it, and it was the same thing. So in this one, they have the show is built around this Kurt Angle interview on Foxcatcher, which was very good. If you want to see it, it's in the Monday Daily Update. In the videos, you can actually see what they aired on television. So it's actually, you know, you don't have to watch the show or anything like that. So they do that. Then, like later in the show, not much later, I would say 15 minutes or so later, they mention, you know, coming up later in the show is the Kurt Angle interview, and it's like, we've already seen it. So then right before the main event, they break in with the ratings, the rankings, announcing that the next week's show is going to have a gauntlet match, which of course is a Rumble match, and that the final 5 participants will be the top 5 contenders. So it's a 20-man thing. So the person who draws the first number 1 through 15 are random draws. Then the number 5 contender is 16, number 4 contender 17, number 3 contender is 18, number 2 contender is 19, number 1 contender is number 20 when it comes to entering. Okay, that all makes sense. So they go through the rankings, and they mention that the number 2 contender is MVP because he just pinned Bobby Lashley in the tag team match. The only problem is that this thing aired right before the tag team match where MVP pins Bobby Lashley. And then they mention, you know, Samoa Joe. Actually, you know, first they mentioned like Samoa Joe's in the rankings because him and MVP won the tag team match over Kurt Angle and Bobby Lashley. And it's like, wait a minute, this match is coming up next. So they do that. They tell you who won, who pinned who, and then you watch the main event, which was a good match. Just, you know, you knew who was pinning who before it aired. Very, I don't, you know, I'm not a fan of that, of watching wrestling and having the wrestling people, you know, having the result of the match told to me on the show before the match takes place. Just, I think it's very sloppy.
Yeah, and you know, heaven forbid that I should be the one to talk about anybody else's technical problems, but they are doing a bunch of stuff in post-production with the pop-up video stuff and all those sorts of things. It just, and we talked about it last week when it came to how it impacted the main event and things like that. How does that happen? I guess, you know.
I mean, well, the thing is that I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago and it happened again. So I don't have an answer to that. But I mean, as far as like the show itself, I thought, you know, this was the first week from Glasgow. And from what I gather, and what I've been told is the 6 weeks from the UK are all really good shows, and they progressively get better, with the best show being the 6th one, which has the Angle Lashley match. And they're doing the show. I mean, you can see the start to the build. And actually, they started building the Angle Lashley match probably really last year when Kurt was still injured. They started the build, but it was more focused. You could see where it was going. I mean, it was really production-wise, and you know, it's still not, you know, it's very dark compared to what it used to be. I think we just have to accept that. But as far as the show and the show content, this was a pretty good show. You know, Eric Young, Bobby Roode match was good. The tag team match with Joe and MVP against Angle and Lashley was good. Some of the other stuff, you know, not as good. But I mean, as far as storyline and direction, you know, I should say, but Bobby Roode was with Aries, not Eric Young. Eric Young took out Bobby Roode with a pile driver on the floor to take him out, so he won't be on in the gauntlet match next week. So in the Eric Young and Aries match, Aries lost by submission, and later in the show they come back and and Angle, like, kind of gets on Aries' case a little bit for tapping out, and Aries goes, you got to look at the big picture. I got the briefcase, so I want to keep myself healthy. So, he's explaining that, save the arm and, look at the big picture. So it was kind of like he lost the match. He lost the match clean, but he explained his quick tap, because usually a babyface wouldn't tap so quick, something like that, a top babyface anyway. So, it's I'm not, do you like the idea that you give up quick when you got the briefcase? He made it make sense. And at least it was, an attempt at a storyline that did at the end make sense. So, they very much focus on the championship as the big prize. I mean, you had Bobby Roode going after the title, you had Aries going after the title, you had Gunner talking kind of about, winning the gauntlet and getting a chance, because the winner of the gauntlet next week gets the title match. So they really made that quest for the championship out to be, strong, the strong focal points. So that was good. Yeah, I mean, overall, and the Grado Al Snow thing was a really good angle. Al Snow was great playing the role of the veteran heel who thinks that Grado doesn't belong in wrestling. And Grado, Grado's got a great face. He's
a walking cartoon character.
He is, but he was very popular in that building because he was Scottish. So,
Did they play like segment a prayer? I guess they couldn't. No, never mind.
What?
They're playing his theme music like a prayer from Madonna.
No, they certainly didn't do that. They certainly didn't do that. But the Al Snow kind of was doing the thing of that not anyone, all you people who watch think that you could do this. Well, you can't. You're not good enough to do it. And Grado is just like you, so they kind of made him out to be this fan who's living a dream type of thing, which is kind of the case in a lot of ways. But he handled himself well. Al Snow went to Grado's mom, who was in the front row, and tried to get her to convince her son to quit. And of course, she wouldn't do that, and she slapped Al Snow. And it was a good angle, building up the match. It made the match seem important. It's going to be a next week's show. So yeah, a lot of good stuff on the show. And a good crowd. It feels so much better, even though it's like 1,500 people, as compared to like when they tape before 500 people and you darken the building. Even though the building was dark, still, at least you knew that there were people there, and the people who were there were very into it. So that helped as well. But they gave them a good show.